Do you want to have your tenants on autopilot to make your life as a landlord so much easier? If so, you definitely want to be taking notes through this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lady Landlords podcast. I am Becky Nova, the founder of Lady Landlords, and today we're going to be talking all about tenant management. So, as you might know from the group right now, I am on my way down to Florida and I'm leaving New York and escaping the rest of the winter because I think if you're in the group, you should know by now that snow is not my thing. I much prefer the beach. Last year, my husband and I went and lived in the Dominican Republic during the winter. This year, I'm going to go check out Florida. So if you are in Florida, definitely reach out and let me know, as I'm going to be planning a couple Lady Landlords events down there during my time. But one of the reasons that I am able to go and travel for months at a time is really because I've put a lot of tenant management systems into place. So today I thought I would share all of my favorite systems and the way that I go through my tenant screening. I thought that might be helpful for you. So I am going to put the links down to all of the different programs that I use. I will put them down in the show notes. So whether you're watching us on YouTube with video, or if you're listening to the podcast, either wherever you happen to listen to those, do make sure to check the show notes to be able to get all the links. And as always, you can always get links and contacts of the people that I'm using from our website at lady-landlords.com. But tenant screening is incredibly important. It really is the lifeline of what we do as landlords. So this is why it is so important to make sure that we have things in order to be able to do this. And this you can do if you are house hacking and have your tenants literally right next door to you, as just as easily as you can do this if you are doing long distance investing and you are states away from where your property is, or even a country away, like I am with my property in the Dominican Republic. So what's important with this is we really need to start our foundation right. And when you put these systems into place, it doesn't matter if you have one tenant or 100 tenants, but now you already have the organization, which is going to make your life just so much easier. It makes things run so much more efficiently. So then that way we're not running around as landlords trying to solve this problem or putting out this fire and getting these calls in the middle of the night. This is really going to help you get that organized and settled. So then that way you can take back your time, because that's why we're doing this. I'm sure if you are listening to this podcast, it's because you were really hoping to reach that financial freedom and to be able just to get that choice of time and choice of what you're doing with your day and within your life. So this is absolutely the solution to that problem. This will help you be able to bring back time into your day by putting some of these systems in place. So the first place we got to start when we have a vacancy or when we buy a new property to rent out is we need to actually find those tenants. So this comes down to where you need to actually place your ad. We talk about this all the time in Lady Landlords. Personally, what I use is I mostly use either Facebook Marketplace to be able to put my listings up there. It's incredibly easy. I always have it set out with what my ad is going to say. I can just post it up there and just sit back and really wait to get responses. The other place that I will actually list my ad would be through Zillow. And Zillow right now does charge for that service in most locations. I think there are still a few locations that Zillow has not rolled out the paid plan for it, but in most places it costs a couple bucks for a week, but it does take care of a lot of the screening in the background. And I do notice that you get a different type of person looking between Facebook Marketplace and Zillow. So it is nice to kind of have those two options. There are tons of other ways that you can do that. Some people in their markets, Craigslist is still popular, or you might still want the option to use a realtor. There's nothing wrong if you want to use a realtor. What's most important in that situation, when you get that realtor to list your property, is that then your property will be listed on the MLS. So a lot of other people will have access to it, which can be great. But when you have a realtor, there is then a fee to be using that realtor, that broker's fee. Now, this completely depends on the area that you live in. I'm over here in New York. So here in New York, it is very, very common. It is expected that the tenant pays the broker fee. That is not the case in all places. I know a lot of other states, people would find that absolutely ridiculous as I said that out loud. There is no way that a tenant's going to pay that. I would have to pay that as the owner. And that's okay. That might still be something that you choose to do and employ that realtor to help you find that property. But For the most part, I really do think that Facebook Marketplace and then Zillow is really a great way to get leads and get people interested in your property. So those are the first systems that I would share with you. Next, though, you're probably saying, but wait, Becky, when I put my ad up on Facebook Marketplace, I get flooded with messages that just say, hey, is this still available? Hey, is this available? Hey, is this available? And you're like, but I just put the ad up. Of course it's still available. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. I got you. But remember that that little blurb that everybody kind of sends to you is actually an automated response from Facebook. So a lot of people, that's just how they start the conversation. They're scrolling through properties after properties in Facebook Marketplace, and they see something they like, they just send off that automatic message. There's nothing to be offended about that. It's just the way that Facebook works. So don't even waste your time on being upset that you're getting the exact same message. What you should do is do the exact same thing back. Make sure to have a canned response that you can automatically send back to people on Facebook Messenger and Zillow. And then that brings us to system number 2 that I like to use. The second system that I like to use at this point in time is simply a Google Doc. What I do with a Google Doc is I actually use that for my pre-screening form. So now with all these people just sending me a message being like, hey, is this available? Now I can actually send them back a simple form, which then goes through my pre-screening questions. What that does is that now puts all of the work and the next steps back in the court of the tenant. It is now their responsibility to follow through. You did your part. You responded to their canned message, but you sent back a canned message to them. Then when you are able to get those responses from your pre-screening questionnaire, that's when then you actually will know if somebody really read your ad or if they didn't. So then that way you're not wasting your time showing the property to people that just aren't going to qualify anyways. So the pre-screening questionnaire is incredibly helpful. You could do it in a couple different ways that you would be able to send them that information. To me, using a Google Doc, I use a Google form, but absolutely Google Docs to me is the easiest way to do that. It gives a nice, simple, easy link, and then you have all of their information stored in one place. And then at that point, you can review who's qualified and then reach out to those people to now set up your screenings. So personally, I only show properties to people that I know can actually rent that property. Now, what I would do next, and moving on to now system 3, I now have my showings of my qualified tenants. We come through. I now have applicants that absolutely love my apartment or my rental property. And now we need to get them an application. To use that, I personally use Neighborly. Neighborly, I love because their screening questionnaires is just so easy to understand. When then a tenant fills out the application and they do that third party, it costs nothing to the landlord to be able to use Neighborly. The tenant will pay the fee for the credit check and the other items that they need to do, but there's absolutely no cost to you as a landlord. Also, they do give lady landlords a discount code, so you can actually even make that more affordable for your applicants, which is just a nice thing to be able to do. But when that tenant now goes through this third-party system, Neighborly, and they use that application, you get the responses. So then that way you can look through it. But Neighborly makes it just so easy for you because it's really color-coded. So you have your red, yellow, and greens. So clearly your green is let's go ahead. This is going to be a great tenant versus your reds that's just saying, hey, there's a ton of red flags out here that you got to watch for. So it's really nice to have it very clear what that looks like. And then they also give every applicant a score. And really what that score does is it's a predictive indicator on how well things are going to work out with that tenant. They really compare that data and they have some really cool algorithms about how it works to make sure that they can say if this tenant is going to be a tenant that's going to stay with you long term, if this tenant's going to end up having issues. It really has some very cool like AI aspects to it, which I've never seen before in any other screening program out there. If you want, we do have an interview that I did with the CEO of Neighborly a few months ago. So feel free to look through the other podcast episodes or here on YouTube, and you'll be able to go back and learn more about Neighborly specifically. But they are who I use just because they make it so easy for me as a landlord to know which tenants are really going to be a good fit for the property or not. So now I get through my application. Great. So now I got a green light from Neighborly. I know that I have a good tenant on my hands, and that's the tenant I'm moving forward with. So now what do we got to do? Now that we identified our tenant, we now need to get them signed up through a lease. So for leases, I use Easy Landlords. What I love about them is that they have a completely comprehensive database of probably every form, document that you will ever need to be able to give a tenant. They have notices of all kinds. They have everything there. And honestly, a lot of their documents are also free to use, which is great. But my favorite part about Easy Landlords is that they actually keep their documents up to date based on state and federal laws. So you don't have to worry about getting a lease that's either out of date or that has things in there that your municipality does not allow for. So I think it's absolutely great that they do that legwork for you. So it's a great option to be able to get your state specific leases. You always want to have your lease be state specific or even city specific, because every state and every city is going to have different rules and regulations. And we as landlords are business owners. That means that we need to make sure that we are in compliance at all times. So Easy Landlords is my forms for leases, for any other notices, but their state specific leases to me is just fantastic. They also have your move-in checklists. So, and your security deposit forms. So that way I can really just go grab that bundle of documents from Easy Landlords, and then I have that all set to go. So that way I can move my applicant from their application to then actually their move-in day. So we now made it through 4 systems that I use. I'm going to share one more with you. Now we get our tenant in there, and we have to make sure that they're going to be paying rent, right? So that's really the thing that we're all waiting for as landlords. So we want to really make sure that we can do that in the best possible way. So in order to do that, I personally use a site called PayRent. PayRent is great because it allows a tenant to pay by a credit card. It also will send the tenants a reminder that their rent is due. Also, they do not allow for partial payments to come through. Now, why is that important? It is really important as a landlord to not be accepting partial payments. The reason for that is if you do accept a partial payment and yet you need to go now give that tenant a 5-day notice or whatever your state commands for late rent, if you accept a partial payment, then you have to start the whole process over. So if a tenant's late and they're late, and then now you give them that 5 days notice, and now all of a sudden they send you $1, well, now you actually have to start that 5 days notice over. This becomes incredibly critical if you ever end up in a situation where you have to evict somebody. Because if you have to evict somebody, you do not want that situation to be drawn out any longer than that legal process already is. So the problem is a lot of people right now, we're using either Venmo, we're using Zelle to be able to collect those monies through those sites. Cash App's another one that's really popular right now to be able to collect those money. But once again, you cannot stop when somebody sends you money on any of those electronic systems. So once again, if your tenant's just going to send you $1, now all of a sudden you have to restart the clock there. So what's great about PayRent is that they will make sure that you can actually take the option where you can only accept full rent payments. So that way you don't get stuck in that situation. Another thing that's really helpful there that I have not seen in any other system, and I think this was really, really helpful throughout COVID. But if a tenant uses PayRent and is making those regular payments, it's great for the tenant because it incentivizes them to continue to pay for 2 reasons. One, because they report to credit bureaus. So it's great for the tenant that those things are being reported, that they are on time. And then it's also great for us as a landlord that the time is being, that if it is late, that is also being documented through their credit. So they take care of setting all that up. But if they have a good rent history, let's say they fall on hard times, especially through COVID, they are able to get a loan from PayRent that will then cover their rent. So that means that you are still getting paid on your side, and the tenant has a little bit of extra relief and a little extra wiggle room for that month. So that is a great option. And I think that with the way that the world has been for the past few years, I really commend them for having that opportunity. I do have an episode from the CEO of PayRent coming out about really how they're building their company to be supportive and to really be a part of this landlord world where both tenants and landlords are really being supported. So keep an eye out for that episode coming up in the next few weeks. But those are all the systems that I use that really I can manage now from anywhere. It makes it so easy that even as I'm traveling, or even if I just want to stay home and want to make my life a little bit easier to spend time with my family, these systems can really help you. So make sure to take a look down in the show notes or on our website at lady-landlords.com, because all of those companies also do offer a discount to Lady Landlords, which is just fantastic. I think it's great that they're so supportive of all of us women in this space that are looking to grow our portfolios. And I think it's really cool that they were willing to do that for us. So give them some love. Go check them out. See if they would be a good fit for you. Once again, there's other systems out there, but I wanted to share with you the personal systems that I use. So I would never recommend anything if it was something that I did not personally use myself or did not fully believe in. So, like I said, take a look, go check them out, see if they will be able to help you. But otherwise, I think that's it for my systems here. So make sure to subscribe to this episode if you are either watching on YouTube or if you're listening on podcast. Make sure to subscribe as we come out with a new episode every Tuesday, and I will see you for the next installment of the Lady Landlords podcast.